Hey, Cut the Shit listeners. You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Go check us out. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Cut the Shit, a podcast series that aims to take a closer look at the impact of the IT industry, both the good and the bad. Cut the Shit is brought to you by Plow Networks, a managed IT services company based just outside Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Brian Link, COO here at Plow, and I'll be your host for this series. I'll ask questions, and with the help of our guests, try to dig deep on some of the key challenges we all face dealing with IT. So with that, let's cut the shit and get started. On today's episode, I am very excited to have Devin Barlock from Cisco as our guest. Devin has been with Cisco for almost 3 years, and for the past year plus, she has served as an IoT specialist, with an emphasis on the Meraki platform's capabilities in cloud-first smart cameras and environmental sensors. This is an area of discussion we've never covered on Cut the Shit, so I'm really excited to hear from an expert in these important systems. During our conversation, we covered the basics of internet-enabled cameras and sensors, some of the ways companies are using these devices to more efficiently manage security, and what the future might hold for this often overlooked area of technology. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Devin Barlock from Cisco. Devin, welcome to Cut the Shit. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here on the podcast. Looking forward to the conversation. Obviously, Cisco is something in our industry we know a lot about, so this will be an interesting angle because you kind of do something that is a little bit different inside that portfolio. So looking forward to having that conversation. But before we dive into the meat of the discussion, I like to always start with a question, just kind of get us warmed up. Can you give us an example of an interesting use of technology or a hack that you've seen or heard or experienced lately? And it doesn't have to be work related. It can be, but doesn't have to be.
Yeah, this first thing that comes to mind for me, and this is maybe not new to everybody, but new to me, is I recently invested in one of those cameras that you can use to like watch your dog, but also throw them treats. So I know that might not be super important or relevant to everybody, but I am a big dog person, and I recently acquired one of those and I've been loving it. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
So I don't know this. I've heard about this, but I haven't seen it.
Then this, maybe not everyone's familiar.
Does it just like spit out treats on some sort of a schedule, or do you like go into an app and like push a button?
Either. So you go into the app and you can use it simply as like a camera to monitor and like yell at them if they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Or, you can schedule or throw out treats at them. So for the first couple of days, my dog was like, what is this thing? Like it would start to throw things at him. And he was like, this is cool, but I'm also a little alarmed.
Like a little freaked out. What is this? Right? Yeah.
Yes. And now when I'm out, I'll go to check the camera and I'll see him sitting in front of it. So now he has learned that he knows
some treats come out of there. Right. So he's ready.
And so he's very conditioned at this point. But I love it because I'm like a freak about my dog. I leave for like 10 minutes and I'm like, what's he up to? Does he miss me? So I'll take a look at the camera and just reward him for being handsome and existing. So that's my favorite new piece of technology and a cool way to leverage cameras outside of, what I do for work. So
good deal. All right. So let's, that's so interesting because I was aware of that, but I've never actually seen one. So
I had friends that were using them and I kind of was like, I don't know if I need to take it to that extreme. And I have, and now I can't go back. So definitely recommend if you have dogs or if anyone listening has dogs or pets, it's a fun way to keep an eye on them while you're gone and still give them attention.
Gotcha. Good deal. All right. Well, let's get to the main event. To get us started, why don't you give us a quick just thumbnail sketch on your background and how you got into the role that you're in today?
Yeah, so I started my career in 2019. I landed in the event technology space. And as you all probably know, a few months out of 2019 into 2020 is when the COVID-19 pandemic started. And it was a really interesting time to be selling event software because events weren't happening. And virtual events hadn't really taken off the way that they have now, obviously due to COVID. So it was a really interesting world to be part of at the time, navigating the world around us and also navigating being new in my career and learning a product and how to sell it and not really knowing where to go from there. So I spent about 1.5 or 2 years doing that, and I really learned a lot from it. And obviously the world continued to evolve and expand, and technology continued to evolve and expand, despite the challenges that we were all facing externally. And that was kind of, I use the term cool. It wasn't a cool time to be part of all of that, but it was cool to watch, I guess, to see that stuff happening in real time, the expansion of technology. I landed a role at Cisco in 2021, and I started in the collaboration side of the house. So the WebEx portfolio, cloud calling, meetings, messaging, cloud contact center, all of that good stuff. And then shifted over to Meraki, where I've now been for a little over a year, working with our IoT portfolio, so cameras and sensors.
Perfect. All right, and that's a good place. That's again, as I mentioned, a lot of folks, pretty much everybody knows Cisco. Most people know Meraki in terms of the networking side, but you bring a different angle to the conversation here. So let's kind of start with the basics. Again, most people know those platforms, but that's more from a network management perspective. So give us a high-level overview of the Meraki platform as it relates to this cameras, physical security, and monitoring piece.
Yeah, so as people might already be pretty familiar with, as far as Meraki goes, it's a cloud managed platform. It allows, remote visibility and cloud management of businesses' environments. We have the full networking stack of solutions, but Meraki expanded its portfolio beyond networking in 2017 to cameras and sensors. So Meraki was acquired by Cisco in 2012. And we've been around since 2006, but acquired in 2012 by Cisco, and then expanded in 2017 to cameras and sensors. So we've kind of been in that game for about 7 years now.
Gotcha. Okay. And what does the current look like for most companies in these areas? I mean, I'm guessing cameras are pretty ubiquitous, but how about sort of the sensor, environmental, OT sorts of things? Talk to us a little bit about what the landscape looks like.
Yeah, so I would say the people I speak with day in and day out, it's kind of a mixed bag. You have some customers and businesses that are fully invested in the cloud. They know that that's the direction that the world is going in if they're not there already, and that is something that they have caught up with. I also have customers that are still on kind of more traditional systems, as far as whether it be their physical security or more manual processes internally, that they're looking to step foot into the cloud world and kind of expand on their processes that have always worked for them, but maybe they hadn't really dipped their toe in the waters of anything else before. And so I think when I'm talking to customers that fall into that category, because it can be not easy, but easier to navigate a conversation with people that are familiar with a cloud-based system. When you're talking to people that maybe aren't super familiar with it's something that, it goes beyond just explaining, this is the camera and this is how it works. It's kind of explaining the value of expanding into really what goes beyond just a physical security system, but a way to streamline your networking infrastructure as well. So I guess to more closely answer your question, as far as, cameras, sensors go, it's really about bringing knowledge to what you can do in these environments that you have all this, important and expensive gear that you're managing. It's keeping your business running, and, how to monitor it effectively in a way that's going to be cost effective, but also, give you valuable insight into that. So it's about navigating that conversation.
So you mentioned valuable insights. Can you give us some use cases? What are some interesting ways, or maybe novel ways, that you're seeing people use some of this sensor technology? Again, cameras are There may be clever ways to use cameras too, but I think most of us probably have an idea about that, right? That's physical security, in and out, usage kinds of things, monitoring access to certain, key areas, that sort of thing. I'm curious because this is not an area I have much, knowledge in. I'm sure there's a bunch of interesting ways people are using this stuff. And so I was hoping you might enlighten me, and maybe others would be interested in hearing that as well.
Yeah, I would say as it pertains to the sensors, a big use case would be one, getting alerted anytime a door is open or closed or left open. Obviously, speaking from a physical security perspective, that kind of speaks for itself. You want to know who's coming in and out, when people are coming in and out, especially if they shouldn't be. And when you tie that, and something that I think sets us apart is we have something called sensor sight. It's basically the pairing of the camera with the sensor. So you have the ability to not only get an alert and have an idea or understanding of something that's going on in your physical environment, but you can actually pull up the camera and see it in real time. So it's an added layer there. But so that kind of being maybe one of the more obvious ones when you're pairing with a camera or talking about physical security. But another big use case that customers really like to utilize our our sensors for is power. So we have the MT40 is our power sensor. What that does is it monitors any power outages, anomalies, it allows you to reboot, basically anything that's upstream of it. It's going to connect and be able to monitor that and give you real-time insight into what's going on in your network. And then in terms of, things like temperature and humidity is a big one as well. People want to be able to monitor their environments where they're housing equipment, making sure that nothing is getting, damaged, fires, floods, all of those things are big concerns and ways that you can easily monitor before it's too late. Because that tends to be the common denominator is I hop on a call with the customer and they're like, well, I'm here because we had a flood or something leaked and now all of our equipment is damaged or, something like that. And you never want to be finding things out when it's too late.
Right. That makes sense. Given what you guys do, it's an overlap with network, but it's not the same, or maybe it's a subset, or maybe a broad subset, but maybe specific areas. So where are you guys seeing the most growth? Are there specific industries or company sizes, specific operational features that prospects maybe have in common? I'm just curious to know who are you guys having the most conversations with right now as an indication of interest?
I would say there isn't necessarily like a one size fits all in terms of need. There isn't one customer that's the perfect fit versus another because Meraki and just Cisco is just so scalable. I work with, customers that run a small business and it's, one person managing their cameras or network and they just want to have visibility into it. I also work with companies that have 20 locations across the country and they have an IT team that needs to manage each of those locations from, one centralized place. And so it really depends on how you need this solution to be scaled. And we're kind of intending to grow with you or, be just a basic, not basic, but provide you what you need from a physical security standpoint or networking standpoint with no fancy bells and whistles. But I will say, some of the industries I work with the most are in the retail space, manufacturing, healthcare. There's just a rising need, I would say, for maybe obvious reasons for things like physical security in those particular industries. But we are an open API platform as well. So outside of providing, the camera solution and insight into your physical environment with the sensors, we also can get even more details through integrations that allow for, depending on the industry or the use case, you can really use the camera to go the next level into your environment.
Gotcha. Okay. Tell us a little bit. I tend to think of this as, this isn't fair, but I tend to think of this as fairly low tech, right? Just because cameras have been around for a long time, and at least the idea of door sensors or sensors have been around for a long time. You guys are delivering through the cloud, so that's cool. But the core technology's been around for a while. What's happening innovation-wise here that's making this technology perhaps more attractive or cheaper? And is anything making it more difficult or more problematic?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I think as far as when we are listening to customers and taking into consideration from our product team what is being asked and required of the environment and the landscape that we're in, right? It's important to continue to evolve that. So whether that be adding new models that help meet those needs, or adding new features that are going to add a little bit more value to, an already valuable solution. I think it's about understanding the environment that we're in, the landscape that we're in, but also how to expand and grow into that, as well as things continue to change. So obviously, we're backed by Cisco. We are, as far as networking and things, we're a full stack solution. So that ease of management, ease of deployment, single pane of glass, as we like to call it, is really, I would say, unmatched in terms of being able to manage your networking infrastructure and also your physical security in one place without needing to have, a system here, a system there, and a bunch of systems that just don't communicate with each other. It is intended to be easy to manage and deploy, while also being valuable and having it do what you need it to do, without having to outsource too many options, because that can get clunky, as people like to say.
Sure. I got to ask, because it seems like it's eating up everything, but is AI playing a role yet for you guys? And if not, where are you guys talking about it playing a role? Because I'm sure you're talking about it if it's not already happening.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking of, the open API capabilities that we have, that's where that really comes into play. It's a big part of that. So, for example, we have, a number of solutions that we integrate with that provide things like asset tracking, behavior monitoring, customer sentiments, if we're talking like retail space or things like that, as well as, things like access control and a number of other solutions that are pretty common in the physical security space. But that's really where, that comes into play, is using the camera as a tool to, through AI and through APIs, really get even more information from your environments and the people in them. We do have AI capabilities, of course, through things like vehicle and people detection and monitoring environments, where you're able to get, data on people occupancy and tracking where, entrances and exits and things like that. So it's definitely playing a big part in, our cameras today and kind of what we're looking to expand into.
And I'm assuming it's fully integrated in the sense that you buy the cameras from you as part of a subscription, or do you have to bring your own equipment? Talk to me a little bit about the delivery of the service.
So the something that's different from us versus like a traditional system, for example, is we don't have, NVRs, DVRs, nothing on-prem that's going to require additional hardware. The cameras themselves are the hardware. So everything processes and stores on the device. You don't need to, go to some like dusty little office to pull the video footage and see what's going on. It's something that's processed and stored right there that you can access through the Meraki dashboard, locally or remotely. But as far as, when you are accessing footage or whatever it is, all of that is done remotely, again, like I said. So it's a very easy deployment in that sense. And it doesn't require anything additional outside of just the cameras, your network, obviously, power. And that's really it.
Speaking of external devices, cameras, sensors, Internet of Things, so IoT stuff, right? IoT devices have gotten fairly or unfairly a reputation for not being particularly secure. And so curious how Cisco and Meraki, how you guys are approaching that, and is that a point of differentiation and a selling point for you guys in terms of the security of these devices? How are you guys approaching that?
Yeah, so our hardware and software security are built in. So we have automatic firmware updates, end-to-end video encryption, and role-based access and audit logs. So it really, in terms of setting us apart, I think that's a big part of it. Like I said, we're backed by Cisco. We're a very secure company in general. But as far as, the software, the video itself, all that security and the hardware for software is built in. So can't get really much more secure than that.
Gotcha. Okay. I figured as much, but I just figured, that's something that is oftentimes a concern for people thinking about, putting a lot of internet connected devices out in your environment, a large factory or office space or something, and worrying that those are, in essence, open ports or something like that can cause issues. In your conversations with clients, what do you, in the nature, as you're discussing things, what are they worrying about the most when it comes to discussions around these systems? And in your opinion, are they worrying about the right things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, the main thing that people want is they want to make sure that if something happens, they can pull that video and they can export it and do what they need to with it, whether it be reviewing it internally, turning it over to authorities, or, whatever the course of action on their end really needs to be. But something I hear probably far too often is, well, we had a system in place and there was a break-in, or something happened to an employee on site, or whatever it might be, and our cameras were down and we had no idea. Or we went to go pull the footage and the quality was so low, like we can't tell what's going on. And that happens often. Those are conversations I have, probably daily. And I think that obviously you want to get ahead of those things, but if you can't, and you're already at the point where you're not ahead of something, investing in something that's going to provide that ease and comfort of knowing that if a camera is down for some reason, or if there's some sort of alert, I'm going to know in real time. I'm not going to find out, when I need to pull the footage and use it and I don't have it. Or, making sure that they have full visibility into their environments and being able to do that across multiple locations without needing to go on site or have someone on site at every location. I think that's a big one. And I think that there's no right or wrong way to implement physical security, but I do think, if you turn on the news now, unfortunately, there's a story every day about something that requires cameras and physical security to be able to pull the video and understand what was happening and get insight into that. And it's best to, have something in place that's going to allow for you to have that level of protection.
Let's kind of pull back a bit, sort of pan out a little as we kind of want to start coming to a close here. But as you look ahead, I know you're fairly new in your job. You've been at Cisco now 3 years in the new role for, year and a quarter, something like that. As you look ahead and as your team looks ahead, you guys are talking about things. What excites you guys when you look forward over the next 2-3 years?
That's a really good question. I mean, I love seeing, I've, been now in my role for a little over a year, to your point, and I've already seen 2 new sensor models come out, 2 cameras come out, a bunch of new features. And I think that's just a testament to we're listening to what's going on in the space and what matters to people, and we're continuously expanding upon that. Being a part of something that has the ability to scale and grow the way that Cisco and Meraki does is really exciting. We're constantly looking for new ways to innovate and be sure to provide solutions that are ultimately solving problems for our customers. So just getting to see the constant innovation in itself it's a really cool thing to be part of. And I think it goes to show that when you are investing in, Cisco Meraki products, you're not gonna ever outgrow the solutions that we can provide, because we're constantly growing too. So it's just exciting to be part of something like that and know that there is a direction, and we're constantly moving towards whatever it is that the world is expanding into. And so having the ability to, through the open APIs and things like that, constantly innovate and grow as well is, it's just really exciting. And it's cool to know that the solutions that we're providing are making a difference for people in some way.
So on the other side, what scares you? What worries you guys when you think about the, next 2-3 years?
I mean, I guess the unknown is scary always, right? Like not knowing how things are going to change and progress and the demands of the world around us and what that might require. Like you said, there's a lot of innovations with things like AI and whatnot, and you never know what that's going to look like in terms of solutions that you can provide or services you can provide. But I think the way that we, work with the rest of the Meraki stack and in the space that we're in as far as other camera systems go, traditional or cloud-based, the ability to just constantly grow into that, like I've probably nailed into everybody's heads at this point, is just it gives that comfort of, even though things are going to change and we're constantly growing and things are going to be demanded of us to keep up with, that we have the ability and the backing to do that. So with a little bit of the fear comes some comfort in that. So I guess we'll all just kind of have to wait and see, what it all looks like in a couple of years.
That makes sense. All right. Well, I always like to wrap up with something personal. That sounds weird, but you know what? I think it'll make sense when you hear it. So can you share something that you've read or watched lately that you think others ought to check out?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel like I've already kind of talked a little bit personally about my love for my dog and my sharing of
we know you love your dog now. We got that part nailed down. So
yeah. No, I mean, I think I'm a big podcast person, and something that I, obviously I'm now part of this, which is really exciting for me. But I love listening to them as well too. And I'm constantly looking for, new or interesting, podcasts and things out there to listen to, whether it be background noise while I'm working or something to, dive into while I'm on a walk or something like that. So I can't recommend enough, tuning into whatever topics are interesting. I don't necessarily want to rattle off all the ones that are relevant to me or interesting to me. But whether it be something like this or just something that's, gets your mind off of all the stress of the world and day-to-day stuff, definitely find, an outlet that kind of gets your mind off things and takes you to a place outside of your own head sometimes. And that's something I like to focus on and encourage everybody to do. So just a little plug for, I guess, taking care of yourself and finding ways to kind of prioritize your mental and all of that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll wrap up there and we'll let you get back to it. Devin, thanks again for taking time to be on Cut the Shit. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. It was good to be here.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would become a subscriber wherever you get your podcasts. And if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, that would really help us out. Or you can just go old school and tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, and hell, anybody else who you think might want to hear something like this to listen in. If you're on social media, make sure to follow us on TikTok at Cut the Shit Pod, all one word, where we post lots of clips from the podcast. And last but not least, you can also watch the YouTube version of the show on our YouTube channel at Plow Networks. Until next time, take care and have a great day.